There was an experiment that involved 6 mothers and 6 children. The children ranged in age from 3 to 9 years old. In this experiment, the women were brought into one side of the room and made to line up side by side. And then the children were brought in individually, one at a time, and blindfolded. They were then sent across to pick out their mothers out of the lineup, without a word, just touch. It was pretty amazing how some of these children could so easily barely brush another woman's stomach or thigh or hand and shake their heads no and move on. The look on the mothers' faces, you could tell that it seemed like torture for them as they waited what seemed an eternity until their little one found them. Though in reality, it was just a few moments. And when the two were reunited, the flood of joy that came over their faces was beautiful. And more than one mother leaked out a happy tear when she was reunited and was able to embrace her precious little lamb. Little lambs are so precious and cute and fuzzy, aren't they? We see their image a lot during Easter time, and I've heard them compared to baby unicorns because of how white and gentle and graceful they appear to be. And then they grow up. And as an animal lover, I must confess, I used to like sheep. Until I was 9 years old, and I was with my grandparents visiting some distant cousin's farm. And I was so excited because I was going to be able to climb in the sheep pen and play with them all. And when I did, I was so disappointed because they were so stupid. Some of them just wandered aimlessly. They didn't care who or what they bumped into. Others stood still, maybe rocking a little back and forth, baaing incessantly for no apparent reason. And when I tried to get past them, they were stubborn and would not budge at all. None of them wanted to be pet or scratch me behind the ear or played with at all. They didn't want any sort of human interaction. And they stunk. A lot. So in John's Gospel that we read today, when we hear about how Jesus is the Good Shepherd, that's all well and fine and good, until we realize that we are being referred to as stinky, smelly, stubborn, stupid sheep. And apparently, according to the 23rd Psalm that we read, we are so dumb that we need to be shown how to drink water and forced to lie down and rest. As if we aren't even smart enough to sleep when we need to. Well, I would like to fight this comparison because I find it rather offensive. But it's pretty accurate. I, for one, can get myself lost pretty easily. Even with the GPS on my phone, I do not have a good sense of direction. And I don't only mean this literally. How many of us have gotten lost finding our career path, or lost in unhealthy relationships, or we got in with a herd or a crowd that was not the best influence, or just poor decision making. And it would probably be helpful at times if I had someone who would force me to lie down and get rest when I needed it. How many of us actually get enough sleep or take enough Sabbath time? And it wouldn't be a bad idea to have somebody to encourage me to have nutritious food and healthy exercise, to treat my body like a temple. It's really not a bad idea at all. And I can be so stubborn. Sometimes I know that I am being stubborn just for the sake of being stubborn, but I'm too stubborn to stop. I think during these times where we wander off, when we listen to unfortunate voices, it must be like torture for God to watch. When we disregard the commandments, when we dive into sin each day, when we justify living just for ourselves first. These aren't just rules that we're breaking where we need to fear punishment. These are ways of living that have natural consequences. And the rules are there to protect us. And all along, Jesus is standing there, jumping up and down, waving, "This way, follow me, I am here." It reminds me of a comic strip I've seen that is like the sequel to the Footprints poem. If you haven't heard the Footprints poem, it talks about a person who has a dream that they are at the end of their life. And they look back at each scene in their life, and for each scene there are two sets of footprints. Theirs, and one set belongs to Jesus, who has been walking with them all along. Well, the person notices that during the especially troublesome times in their life, during those scenes, there's only one set of footprints. And they assume that Jesus has abandoned them. But no, they learn that it is during those times that Jesus has carried them, like a good shepherd. Well, the comic strip that I've seen continues, where Jesus is pointing to a trench and says, "See that lone groove right there? That's where I dragged you, kicking and screaming." I love that because I think I have been dragged kicking and screaming quite a bit. I think it often happens when we start thinking that we need to somehow make ourselves good enough for God. And we make believe that we have it all together. And we justify our actions in saying that we had no other choices. And we tell ourselves that if we just meet this next goal, whether it's losing 5 pounds, getting a raise, quitting a vice, that then we will be complete, all on our own. I don't know whose eyes we think we're trying to pull the wool over, because that's all it is a cover-up. The truth is that God knows our truth. And in truth, there is grace. We are all messes. We all have stuff. And still, Jesus comes to us over and over and over again, never giving up on us, laying down his life for us, carrying us like a good shepherd, and when need be, dragging us kicking and screaming. When Jesus tells us that he is the good shepherd, he is telling us that he's not going anywhere. We can backtalk. We can wander off. We can try to make ourselves in control like Adam. We can mess up big time like David. We can deny him like Peter. We can be stinky, smelly, stupid, stubborn, lost sheep. And still, Jesus will fight for us. Jesus wants us to know him. Jesus wants us to be able to pick him out of a lineup blindfolded. To know that we are loved unconditionally, in truth and action. And we don't need to try to cover up our stinky, smelly selves, because the Good Shepherd has made us good enough. That is who we belong to. That is where we are meant to be. Amen.